have to give up every other opposition, give up everything so that Buhari become president. Remember that people begin to look back into Buhari's history as the military dictator in 84, 83, 84, 85. And people started to think that with the emergence of President Muhammad Buhari as president, things were going to change. There was hope. There was high expectations. And you cannot take it away from Nigerians or blame Nigerians for having high expectation. He promised a lot of things before he becomes president, before he became president. He without any push, without any demand, he single-handedly lifted Nigerians' hope. President Muhammad Buhari went around the country asking people to trust him. Now, how do you give someone so much hope and then somehow along the line you flatten the hope? This is the reason why Nigerians cannot forgive President Muhammad Buhari, which I can clearly understand. Now, I'm going to take a perspective here today on giving you some background on how and why President Muhammad Buhari's legacy is being lost, or why President Muhammad Buhari lost his glorious legacy, a legacy that would have been stamped in the best part of the pages or part of pages of the book of history of Nigeria. He was supposed to be among those that Nigerians honor today. But if you go on the street of Nigeria today, you ask any human being, any Nigerian about the legacy of Buhari, they're just going to give you a damn as a response. Now, if you want to blame them, first you have to look into the history of Buhari's rule as president of Nigeria. Why do I take a background on this? I find it very disrespectful that a lot of Nigerians has this view about President Muhammad Buhari. I see it to be very, very dishonored. But then at the same time, this is as a result of a man who thought he could change things, who thought he was going to be able to do it, but then couldn't. And then unfortunately, this have earned him a place in the worst page of Nigerian political history. As if that is not enough, even a young Nigerian today who do not have the experience of his leadership cast aspersion at President Buhari. Now, what are the things that actually made President Buhari lost his glorious honor as a Nigerian leader, or his glorious legacy as a Nigerian leader? I'm going to get into that story today, because today I'm going to break it down. Remember that President Muhammad Buhari ran for office for 12 years consecutively. He was just coming back to back. In 2003, he was there against President Olusegun Obasanjo. And that time, I think he was with, he ran with Pastor Tunde Bakare, I think. 2007, he was there. 2011, he was there. Consistently promising Nigerians change, asking Nigerians to trust him, asking Nigerians that only he can fix Nigeria. How do you give so much, high expectations to Nigerians and then crush them? Immediately they gave you the opportunity to do what you've told them that you were going to do. Now let me get into the story. Remember that before President Muhammad Buhari took over office, one of the key factors why Nigerians trusted him was because he was a former military general, a head of state, who Nigerians believed that, he was going to he was going to fix the insecurity in Nigeria. And because Nigerians believed he was going to fix the insecurity in the northeast and of course in Nigeria, they trusted him with that vote. And then, when he got into office, he did his best, as much as I would believe, but then that was not enough. Nigerian President Muhammad Buhari moved the military headquarters from Abuja all the way to Borno State in his effort to counter the insurgency and the Boko Haram. Did that work? Did that actually turn out good? How do you tell when what happens next was just a show of technical defeat of the insurgents of Boko Haram, but then nothing was actually happening? This story is going to be unfortunate because now remember that when President Muhammad Buhari took over office, he started probing people from the previous administration, especially those who were in the front line of Nigerian security agencies, including the military. He was just witch hunting them, going after them. Of course, he wanted to dig out what exactly were they doing with the budget that was meant for security. And then he started probing. He probed one of the security advisors of the former administration under Goodluck Jonathan was it Abakari? He probed him, and he was arrested, and he was under investigation for that. He was doing his best in security, which was the primary reason why Nigerians voted him. Security, economy, okay? And as if that was actually one of the things that could have given him the power, the opportunity to turn Nigeria's situation around. But that didn't happen. It didn't happen. Buhari started visiting neighboring countries, trying to build alliance with Niger, Chad, all of those countries where it was believed that Boko Haram members or Boko Haram's members were being recruited. They were coming in from Chad, Niger. So he started going to those countries. All that effort could have earned him a best place in the history books of Nigeria. So what was the outcome of all of this visit? When he went to Chad, have negotiations with the Chadians, went to Niger, started building connections and trying to establish his presence as the new chief executive of Nigerian security in charge. It is sad. I don't know why I feel very emotional about how this whole thing went. It's really terrible because if you look at it closely, you're going to see that President Muhammad Buhari thought that 2015, 2016, 2017, 18, down to his last day in office were 1987 or 1988. He didn't know the magnitude of what he was coming to face. And because of that, when he came, he became overwhelmed. Now, insecurity got worse. As if that was not enough, it got worse. Because there was a whole lot of things happening in the northeast where he promised to stabilize. Terrorists were just taking over everywhere. Terrorists have ammunitions that even Nigerian military didn't have. Where was those military grades weapons coming from that were just going straight to the terrorists in the northeast? Being a former general, people believe he was just going to be a savior, messiah, but that it didn't happen. He lost it. He didn't get what he wanted to get. He didn't stop insurgency. He didn't stop the terrorists. So absolutely, that was his first failure. That was his first failure. It is just when you look at how his name is being rubbed in the mud today, love him or hate him, I would say the man came in the wrong generation. He came into the wrong generation because in 2025 that he eventually died is a different space compared to when he was younger. Because when you see the young generations with the kind of morale they have, the kind of comprehension they have, these are not people you can easily manipulate with any kind of politics. Because at the end of the day, one of the things that affected him is because he looked at this generation as though this is 20 maybe 1990s, where he can play down on people and get away with it. He didn't, because this generation is the era of what, social media and all of that. So everybody is informed. Now he came under three strong pillars of expectations that Nigeria expected him to change. Number one is security, which I just told you guys. When he came, the first thing he did was he started probing the previous administration under Goodluck Jonathan, trying to dig out what is going on, why haven't you guys fixed this insecurity in the north or in Nigeria. He started going after security chiefs, and all of that didn't pay off. And then he moved the army headquarters from to Maiduguri, which is Borno, and then he started his best, traveling around continents, going around meeting Barack Obama, just trying to fix insecurity, but then all of that didn't work. He promised that he was going to fix our economy. Work, he didn't. He promised he was going to fight corruption. That also failed very woefully. Now, how do you now exonerate such legacy from being tainted? What are you going to say that is going to change that legacy? How does a man who has Nigerians' heart, a man who won the love of Nigerians, suddenly throw it away? Did he intentionally do that? He didn't. Now, for those of you or those of us who are interested in the political space of Nigeria and how things are being run in Nigeria, it will take a long time to be able to see through reasons beyond just the narrative that is currently being run. Because if you go anywhere today across Nigeria, TV stations, radio stations, on social media, go doors to doors, ask people about the legacy of President Muhammadu Buhari, what you are going to hear will shock you. Why? Because President Muhammadu Buhari failed in many areas where people expected real, transparent change, physical change, visible change. Insecurity worsened, economy was bad, and then what? Corruption. Under his administration, corruption just went all the way up. And he was fighting corruption. How do you fight corruption? And corruption is just fighting you and getting, like, you are at war with corruption and then you lost. It conquered you. I mean, it's something to laugh about. Buhari accused the previous administration that Goodluck Jonathan watched under his watch and did nothing as corruption was growing wings and started flying. He accused them of that. He said it many times, and that he was going to get rid of it. And when he got into power, everything was different now. The funny thing, sorry guys, I took a break. The funny thing is that when Nigerians heard when President Buhari won election, you know, we branded Nigerians called him the incorruptible. Of course, to date, I believe he is the incorruptible. To have an incorruptible president was like he gave Nigerians that smile, like, oh, things are going to be better. I mean, if, oh no, things now, from now, we're on a different ride. That was what Nigerians believe in. And then it wasn't as, it's like when you come back home and you hear the aroma, you perceive the aroma of a very delicious meal being cooked in the kitchen, only for you to taste it and it's the worst food you've ever tasted. That was what's happened, you know. So yeah, guys, I'm going to get into my questions and answer here on the contributors list. We're going to talk about how Nigerians are going to respond. You know, you get incredible responses of how President Muhammad Buhari lost his glorious legacy as Nigerian's president, you know, and became one of the worst presidents in history, in the history of Nigerian politics. All right. So, um, in my contributors list, we have. Let me reply first. All right. So, my name is Dr. Cheek. I left Nigeria to Houston, Texas during the period of President Muhammad Buhari. Buhari began as a symbol of discipline and anti-corruption, but by his second term, rising insecurity and economic hardship overshadowed that image, leaving many Nigerians disillusioned. Even before I left in 2019, before the election, I already knew he's going to win and things will get worse. So, with all of his antecedents and his history and file, he has to be in the worst pages of Nigerian history. Trust me, he didn't do what he said he was going to do. Alright? He didn't do what he said he was going to do. And remember that you cannot forget the fact that his administration recovered a lot of money from politicians who stole money under his anti-corruption war against corruption. He recovered a lot of money, recovered a lot of assets. Don't forget that. Fatima said, as a journalist and a social commentator, I would promise the promise of change inspire hope, which was what he campaigned for. But power seemed to slow his urgency. People didn't see the compassion that they expected, especially during crises like fuel scarcities and the NSAS protest. How will he not be the worst president? What else do you expect Nigerians to say? What else do you expect Nigerians to say? That's Fatima Bello. Because people accuse President Muhammad Buhari of being like honest, empathetic. I don't know how and why, but people accuse him of being unempathetic, and people say he wasn't compassionate enough, especially when there were crises. There was a time when you know, people died in Benue State, and he didn't visit, and many places where things happened, and President Muhammad Buhari just kept mute, didn't say anything, as if nothing had happened. His efforts in trying to make the things that he wanted to do become visible was more like he was just spoiling the whole thing. And this one said, when history judged Buhari, he won't ignore his silence during human rights abuses and the crackdown on dissent. Silence is in moments that demanded empathy was a heavy price, and that was why he became one of the worst presidents in the history of Nigeria. I can say that with my full chest. All right. You see that? He became silent. This is how he lost his legacy. He became silent. At first, I believed in him, but food became too expensive. Naira kept falling, and we saw no hope and help. Hunger makes you forget speeches. Hunger makes you forget speeches, which is true, you know. So President Muhammad Buhari he brought hunger into the land, and with that he lost his glorious legacy. All right, Babatunde said we campaigned thinking he had fought corruption fiercely. Instead, corruption simply changed clothes. Many around him acted with impunity, and a man who campaigned that he was going to fight corruption became one of the most has one of the most and one of the most impunity gang of ministers. I don't know what this man is trying to write, but that is it. All right, and this guy said Buhari lost his moral authority, moral honor, when by appearing detached from people's suffering. Leaders are remembered not just for police policies but for compassion. We said before, President Muhammad Buhari lost his compassion. That is also a point. Aisha Musa said, women's rights activist. As a women's rights activist, his government did too little to protect women and girls, especially in the north. In the northeast, his legacy among many Nigerian women is disappointment, not pride. Right. Thank you very much for your contribution. Dr. Eze said, he inherited economic challenges but failed to pivot boldly. Heavy borrowings, rising inflation, and inconsistent policies only erases his only goodwill, which was being a, I don't know the end of what you mean. There's so many things. So many things. Osman Gaba. I was a child when he came to power, but by the time he left, I saw more violence, kidnappers, and hopelessness. Graduates, we needed a father figure. We got a quiet figure. But how were you a child when he was president and became an adult when he left office? Are you sure you're being honest, Chief? All right, that's your opinion. That's your contribution. That's why you think President Muhammad Buhari lost his glorious legacy. The street remembered EndSARS. His cold response cost him an entire generation, online and offline. That hurts. His legacy is beyond repair. He has no legacy, only but a very terrible dark legacy. All right, thank you for your contribution. Kabir says, surveys have showed that trusting Buhari drops sharply after 2019. Nigerians felt let down by unmet promises and worsening daily realities. All right, this is one of the contributors here. You remember that if you're online and you're going around, you're listening or watching, a lot of Nigerians are saying things about President Muhammad Buhari. I believe they will say things about President Asiwaju Bola Ahmed when the time comes. But people have different reasons as to why they look at Buhari the way he left. Why I'm going to close a file on President Muhammad Buhari very soon. I mean, today might be one of the last videos or live dedicated to President Muhammad Buhari, because I know we can do very little to salvage his legacy. But then let's just see some of the reasons why people think that President Muhammad Buhari was one of the worst presidents of Nigeria. He was a man of few words, which we love about him. But sometimes the people needed words of hope. When he was campaigning, he speak more. He campaigned, people believe in him, and he gave us hope. He didn't give them, he didn't give us the he didn't give the same people the same hope when he became president. Instead, he went silent and became silence became his loudest message. Who does that? Who does that? All right. Ibrahim said, Abdullahi, he said, I voted for him because I remember his disciplinary in the 80s. But discipline without vision is not enough. People needed solution, not nostalgia. He was a former general before becoming a civilian president. He understood the two principles of leadership. He shouldn't have failed. Anybody who would have failed would just be someone who has no experience. But he had experience. He has no excuse. Okay, this is what I see. Oluwatosin said, we suffered under endless taxes, power cuts, and rising cost of living. His government left distance from real people running small shops and stores. Okay. Buhari underestimates the power of youth. NSAS was the turning point. Young people who once respected him saw a leader unwilling to listen. Because I told you he became a president in the wrong generation. Because people have respected this man up until 2020. Up until 2020. The worst, what broke the camel's back was when NSAS, happened. And people, Nigerians felt he should have done better. He should have done better. And okay, so okay, I voted for him because I remember he's okay. Yeah, we suffered under him. Yeah, I've gotten that response. Buhari underestimated the power of youth, and NSAS was the turning point. Yeah, I think we've gotten that. In the northeast, attacks continues and lives were unprotected and uprooted. Many felt forgotten by the very man who promised them security. Even though the military were there, but it was as if the military were under some kind of control from higher authority. They couldn't do anything. Instead, they were being captured by them, by terrorists, and that even deplete our hope. Okay, that's yours. Efyong said, as a driver in Abuja, when a president can't keep food affordable or petrol flowing, people lose patience fast. We only saw government on TV, not on the streets. You see? And Moses said, As an ex-militant military man, I respected him, but I watched the military struggle with equipment and morale. He didn't give them what they needed to protect the country. But remember that President Muhammadu Buhari moved the military headquarters up to the northeast in Borno State, Maiduguri. That act alone shows that he was committed to fighting terrorism. It's just that things didn't work out the way he expected or the way he planned it to happen. His Zainab said he had a chance to become a unifying elder statesman. I love this. He had a chance to become a unifying elder statesman. Instead, he often seemed silent when the country cried the loudest, especially how he treated the Igbos. Under him, Nnamdi Kanu was arrested. Under him, the southeast were being massacred by his orders. Under him, there was something called Operation Python Dance in the east. Under Buhari, everything was targeted and everything was clamped down, including the NSAS. Man was just after killing Nigerians. Oh man. Legacy of President Muhammadu Buhari. Tijani said, Buhari's legacy faltered because it relied on symbolism, not institutions. When people saw the economy decline, they stopped believing in symbols. When people see economy decline, they stop believing in symbol. How did President Muhammadu Buhari lead as a symbolic president? People saw him as he was more of a symbolic president than a sympathetic president. Anyway, let me get to contributions so that I won't add words that are not there. School fees, food, rent, everything rose up. Cost of living skyrocketed. I stopped caring about speeches. I was counting every naira that was spent and how the money was being stolen. And man was fighting corruption. How do you fight corruption when you can't even fight people within your circles? Adamu said, we feared going to the farm because of bandits. Security failed us, and we felt like we were left on our own under Buhari's watch. All right. We feared, okay. We finished university into a shrinking job. Market. Buhari didn't build an economy for us. He built excuses. Oh, wow. Tunde said, history will remember him as a man who meant well but lost control of his narrative. Silence, economy pain, and security failure overshadow his early integrity. Khadija said, women and girls waited for policies that never came. Even basic promises on safety in schools and markets remain words on paper. Why are we talking about women and children? Buhari wasn't that kind of man. Alright, Tunde said, history will remember him as a man who meant well but lost control. Okay. Khadija said, women and girls waited. Okay. Bello said, internationally, Nigerian lost some shine. Investors grew weary. Foreign media often spoke more of our troubles than our progress. This was under his leadership. That is where his legacy can be also tinted. Okay, thank you, Bello. Grace said, the healthcare system stayed underfunded during COVID. We saw how unprepared we were. Leadership should have left it stronger. But Buhari didn't do that. He left and eventually went to go and die in a foreign country where all his money was lost. And then he returned empty-handed, only for him to be buried in Nigeria. Sadly. Okay, Nnamdi said Buhari came to the east thinking he can eradicate and erase everybody. He tried to kill everybody in the east, but he couldn't. Now we live, now he's dead. He entered with the aura of a disciplined reformer, but left with the economy weaker, the naira battered, and public trust eroded. What a shame. this is this is this is something else. I remember sitting in traffic listening um, to mothers cry on radio calling shows about kidnapping ransom, and all I could think was, where is the main man who once promised us safety like a father? It felt like betrayal dressed in silence. Okay, felt like betrayal dressed in silence. Joseph Effiong said, Joseph Effiong said, give me a minute so I can. Oh, I forgot something. Okay. Is it too late? It is. Obviously, ultimately, it is. Okay. There were days I drove from sunrise to nightfall just to buy bread and fuel. My son once asked me why I looked so tired. How do you tell your child the president you trusted has forgotten people like us? Amina Zubaru. I saw families bury their loved ones after attacks, and every burial felt heavier because the man who promised us peace only sent sentiment, never present, never comfort, never in the country. He was always sick. A lot more. Okay, during NSAS, my phone line were flooded with sobs from young people beaten by police. We waited for Buhari's words, not even an embrace, just words. His silence was louder than sirens. Oh, Nigerians. I'm taking contributions from my. Oh, Guys, sorry. So I'll get back to my work. So during NSAS, my phone line were flooded with subs from young people beaten by police. We waited for Buhari's words, not even an embrace, just words. His silence was louder than serene. How do you give that man such a man any legacy? Hawa said, I watched tomatoes triple in price. One day I saw a mother beg for half a cup of rice for her children. That day, the hope Buhari once gave me turned into shame. And Moses said, I swore an oath to serve Nigeria, but watching our brothers fight bandits with old weapons while politicians build mansions, it crushed something inside me. Buhari know better. That's why he hurts more. He does not have a legacy. During COVID, patients begged for oxygen we didn't have, and I would think this wasn't supposed to happen. We thought Buhari's rule meant discipline. Instead, it meant empty words and tired nurses. Omo, we can go on and on and on and on. Buhari's legacy has been torn into different pieces because before he became the president, even the American president favored him because you could see that the American president went on to campaign for the next administration, asking Nigerians to vote right. And immediately he took office, he even went to see Barack Obama, and Barack Obama, and other European leaders, sort of congratulated him for becoming the president, also supported his agenda to combat corruption, and they gave him all the necessary support because he, in the first term of being president in office, he was trying to push. But remember, he was also getting sick easily. He was also getting sick easily. He he wasn't just like he was. When you talk about corruption, let me talk about one thing at a time. When you talk about corruption, how he tackled corruption. Remember, he won anti-corruption leader in Africa, at least even twice, I think. And it was more like in the fight against corruption in the world. Out of 100% corruption-free nations, Nigeria has scored 24%. So that means Nigeria was corrupt at 76%. Nigerians were corrupt at 76% ratio. And as if that was not enough, things were just, he came to fight corruption, but things weren't getting any better. Before dawn, I would look at my machete and pray, let me return alive. Famine turned from blessing to fear, and the government felt as distant as the city sky. Oh. My daughter once asked, Mommy, why can't we buy eggs anymore? I wanted to say the president failed us, but instead I said times are hard because how do you explain broken promises to a child? Everything is just what it is. Everything is just what it is. My daughter once asked, okay, sorry, graduating felt like climbing a mountain only to find there was no job at the top. Just a cliff. Buhari's Nigerian taught me that dreams alone aren't enough. Wow. I'm muted. Sorry, guys. Ikenna said, it is hard to explain the heartbreak of loving your country, believing a man would fix it, then watching him fade into people's comfort. Wow.
Une plateforme pour n'importe quel.
For the quarters in the nation's commercial net center, Lagos. We'll bring you the biggest story in the polity and in politics. Let's begin with the headlines. A nation in mourning at former President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic, Muhammadu Buhari. Then Femi Gbajabiamila arrived London. So from the last conversation she had with us at the top of the hour, 11 o'clock on News Track, she talked about the fact that we may have run into a bit of a logistics challenge. But given the urgency of the matter, the Vice President is doing all he can because of religious rights. The President is to be buried today. But as the country is coming to terms with the passing of President Muhammadu Buhari,
Muhammadu Buhari was born on December 17, 1942, in the Fulani settlement of Dumurkwal, in the outskirts of the famous Hausa city of Daura. He is the 9th child and only son of Malam Adamu and Malama Zulaihatu.
Buhari an yaye shi ya samu ko shekara biyu ko uku na wannan.
Our dad died when Buhari was about 2 to 3 years old.
We depended on our mother for everything.
Under the tutelage of his mother, at 6, young Buhari was among a few children opportune to be enrolled in Town School Number 1, Daura.
He attended Daura 1, located then at the secretariat near Emmy's Palace.
We went to the same primary school. Although he comes along with us to the stream, he never swims.
Nevertheless, under the care of his half-brother, Malam Dauda Daura, who was on transfer as headmaster, a thriving marginal town within the Niger border. Muhammadu Buhari's ability saw him among those that passed and proceeded to middle school.
About 96 of us, 96 precisely, passed the exam and were shortlisted for middle school.
The middle school later transformed to government.
General Buhari was a student of this college, was admitted in 1956, and then he graduated from here in 1961. All his records are intact right from Secondary School 1 to Secondary School 6. And all his report cards are intact right now in the file. And going by the foundation and the comments of his teachers in the file, from all indication, we can see General Buhari, right from his secondary school, is a person of good character, is a person with personality traits, is somebody from his classmates and his teachers. He was even the head boy of the city when there he graduated.
When we finished secondary school, 61, we set the West African Cambridge examination. General Buhari, Shehu Musa Radua, registered with the Nigerian Army.
Youthful Buhari enlisted in the Nigerian Army in 1961. In a distinguished military career, Buhari rose through the ranks. During the Murtala regime, Muhammadu Buhari was made governor of the then northeastern state, which comprised the zone. He subsequently served as Federal Commissioner or Minister for Petroleum and Natural Resources in 1976. Shortly before the military handover of 1979, Buhari was moved back to Army headquarters as Military Secretary and member, Supreme Military Council. With the Army back in the barracks, Brigadier Buhari pursued and obtained a master's degree in strategic studies from the U.S. Army War College in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. Successively, Brigadier Buhari became the General Officer commanding 4th Infantry Division, moved on to Ibadan as General Officer commanding 2nd Mechanized Infantry Division, and then to Jos as General Officer commanding 3rd Armored Division of the Nigerian Army. Buhari's track record of Spartan life and commitment to the Nigerian project made him the obvious choice of his colleagues, who invited him to lead the nation in December 1983.
Buhari fit in very well because he was a good his mind, So I think his party easily fit into it. He doesn't have any disruptive influence as a person. He is free from such things like alcoholism. He's free from all the vices that people get indulged in. He was free, and it was not difficult to fix him, to pick him up as an ideal person.
Buhari was forced out in the coup of August 1985. As a pensioner in his early 40s, the former head of state went into full-time farming and rearing of cattle. Almost a decade passed in retirement before Muhammadu Buhari was invited back into public life to lead the Petroleum Trust Fund (PTF) set up by the Abacha regime in the mid-90s. The general's distinguished performance as PTF's helmsman, among others, convinced the famed Buhari think tank about his electoral value and the need to persuade the people's general to join politics in April 2002. Having been convinced, Muhammadu Buhari threw in his hat and pitched tent with the All People's Party, later All Nigeria People's Party, ANPP. He won the ticket of the party but lost the presidential election to PDP's Olusegun Obasanjo. Leveraging on his political appeal and huge followership, Muhammadu Buhari again clinched the 2007 ANPP presidential ticket. He squared it out with his PDP challenger, late President Umaru Musa Yar'Adua. Alongside trusted associates across the country, he formed the Congress for Progressive Change, CPC, just months to the 2011 elections. Although Buhari had one of his best outings in the polls, his heroic contest failed to stop PDP's Goodluck Jonathan from becoming Nigeria's elected president in 2011. For the third time, Buhari headed for the courts to contest the presidential election. Although he failed to turn even one of the three elections he challenged up to the Supreme Court, by attending all but one sitting of the court, his tenacity of purpose was tested beyond the endurance of a casual Democrat.
Quel est le moyen le plus rapide de faire avancer les contrats? Monday CRM. Tout a commencé par...
Attempt was not Buhari's last. He joined like minds to form the All Progressives Congress APC to challenge the incumbent and entrenched People's Democratic Party PDP. With a balanced ticket, the APC plunged into the campaign trail, riding on a manifesto of change, anti-corruption and economic reconstruction.
No one's to take the blame for what we've become.
The moment we came out with our candidate and his running mate, Nigerians took ownership of the party, and it transformed from being a political party to a movement.
Like the cat with 9 lives, this 9th child showed he is a child of destiny like the famous Abraham Lincoln, undeterred by past disappointments and energized by the patriotic conviction that Nigeria deserves better leadership.
I intend to keep my oath and serve as president to all Nigerians. I belong to everybody and I belong to nobody.
President Buhari's demonstrable integrity has since won him and by extension Nigeria new friends in the international community. He was invited to address the G8 in Germany a few days after his assumption of office. He also earned a commendation from the United Nations Secretary General and the leading nations of the world.
Mr. President, you doing all right? I hope all the accommodations have been okay. Good. Have you met Trudeau? He's doing a good job.
Yes, indeed.
Muhammadu Buhari, Nigeria's 6th democratically elected president, has inherited a Nigeria facing one of our most challenging economic experiences. But as his life has shown, this disciplined leader has never been known to step back from a challenge.
attach much materially, especially materialism that was at the expense of development of the country. I have a clear conscience. I feel I can face good challenges. So I told my children, I will educate you. Better earn a certificate when you feed yourself. You go to get money from anywhere around the country.
This is Muhammadu Buhari, Democratic President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, sworn in on 23 May 2015 for a 4-year term. Nigerians know him as a top former military head of state and Major General of the Nigerian Army. Many therefore wondered if he could govern as a Democrat if elected. So, who really is the man Buhari? What are his strengths? What is it like to work for and with him? Is there any doubt as to his democratic credentials?
At all whatsoever. You see, I think that the president has, as far as he's concerned, everything must comply with the Constitution, everything must comply with the law. My view is that he really has come like 360 degrees from the military, and he's so fixated on constitutional process. He wants to know, okay, so if you say this is how we're going to go, okay, so where's the law? What does the law say? You know, and all of that. I have to remind him that I'm the one that's a lawyer, you know, not you, but he's always very concerned about what the law is, what the Constitution says, you know, and once he's advised on that and he's confident that that's the position, he goes ahead with it. So he's very open, very democratic. I think that's really that's something that is, and allows a lot of views, a lot of counsel here and there. People, so he's very open in that sense.
Let me tell you, in private, I have complained to the president that partly because he's a general, and partly because he was head of a military regime, he has become excessively democratic. There are certain things we ask him to do, and he will say, I said, if I do that, they will say I'm back to my dictatorship days. You know, when I was military head of state, I was young, I was in a hurry, I was brash, and it was a military regime. It did not pretend to be democratic. But President Buhari is so conscious of his need to be seen to be fair, even-handed, and democratic in everything he does, that sometimes people take advantage of it. They interpret it to be a weakness. It is not. I think President Buhari is more than qualified to lead Nigeria at this point in time, and I think he represents our best hope for a stable country that will transit to face the 21st century. This is why I stuck with him for years. This is why I will remain with him till the end, and I have no regrets and no doubts about it.
Oh, certainly, and unquestionable. If there's one person that I know truly that is a Democrat and he will adhere to with democratic tendencies, I mean, that one person is President Muhammadu Buhari. And I'm happy that even when we go either for Council of States or we have opportunity of meeting with him, we have never seen such things happening. A president that will allow everybody, all of us, one after another, he will be patient, he will look like this. He wants everybody to notice. Yes, everybody should contribute. It has never happened. All those democratic credentials are there. We will not only come for meeting. Before we come, they will show us this is the position of our SS code. This is how much we made this year. This is how much we made this month. So if you call somebody a Democrat, what else do you want? If you want to see somebody that love Nigeria and love to see that things are done the way it should be done, appropriately, following all maybe the things that should be followed, it is President Muhammadu Buhari.
Democratic capacity. Have you ever heard any governor in this country write to his deputy, I'm traveling, I'm handing over power to you? Do you remember one? He did. He wrote down, inform the National Assembly and the country. I'm not feeling well, I'm going. I've handed it. He did. How more democratic can you be? I know some of our governors who, when traveling, would rather hand over to an essay than to their deputy, or hand over to nobody. Now, if this man had no respect for democratic principles, why would he take such a risk?
I don't think I doubt it in any form. We all know that since he came in, he's actually been directing all his activities democratically, and he believes in the constitution of this country. We have seen that play out in a lot of things he did. When he was traveling out on his medicals, he had to hand over to the vice president for a period of time. He's someone who believes in the rule of law.
I'm smiling because if somebody went to the electorate 4 times before he's elected a leader, I don't know what else he needs to do to show democratic credentials. I think that's massive. And then secondly, he's made the point that even the fight against corruption, the war against corruption, because he wants to respect the rule of law and also work with the system. We have a system where you have the judiciary, the National Assembly, and the executive. That's why at times the war appears slow. So I think in terms of democratic credentials, I believe that he's done well and continues to do well.
Not a scintilla of doubt about his democratic credentials. I have no doubt that he can lead Nigeria to where Nigeria deserves to be. These are difficult times before. They're difficult times. But the difficult times will not endure. Before the end of the mandate in 2019, there will be a radical difference in Nigeria.
President Buhari is a complete Democrat. My reasons are, I have worked with him for over 2 years before election, and I know he has been president 2 years now. I have been watching his programs, I have been watching what he has been doing, and there is no sign that President Buhari had even ever been a military man. The minute I got to know him, that was the first thing I noticed. He's a complete Democrat in everything he does.
Fantastic man. I've heard people say he hasn't quite imbibed democratic. And I find that very strange. If anybody's going to accuse him about anything, is that he's not sufficiently authoritative. Once you have your job cut out for you, or once he delegates, in my case, my job is cut out for me. He says it, and he has said it so often. Is it against the party constitution, or is it against whatever I'm doing against the national constitution? Once he is assured that you follow the rules as laid down, that is the end of the matter. A man who delegates is a man who respects the rule of law to the last detail.
I think people make assumptions of the fact that because he's a military general, that he will not be bound by norms, democratic norms. The country has enjoyed, coming this far, the healthiest relationship between the three arms of government. And you remember that from the beginning, those crises in the National Assembly actually were arising from the fact that the president had refused to point at President of Senate and Speaker. The president said, no, no, no. Let them go and choose who they want to lead them. So he is not dictatorial. He doesn't impose on people, on institutions, his own views. He allows them to operate in line with the laws, with the constitution of the country.
That military thing is not negative. That military thing of discipline, integrity, keeping to time, doing things the right way is not negative. But the military, in terms of being dictatorial, doing things alone, they can't even afford to. It's a democracy. And that is why it will always ask you, tell me what the law says. Let me read what the law says before I take a decision. So when you say military, it's not all negative. The discipline is there. This is a man of integrity. This is a man who will not, steal Nigeria. If a leader leads the way, others will follow. So when you say military, I think what the ideas of being disciplined, doing things the right way, it's very positive. However, the idea of being dictatorial is what people talk about, which he doesn't have. So really, I think he's done well in terms of being a democratic president.
No, I never had any doubts. You see, watching closely during the campaign, I could see him living up to his declaration that he was now a born-again Democrat, as he would have said. You know, I actually find him very interesting. I've sat with him and asked him questions that some people feel was uncomfortable questions. I've asked him questions about Sharia. I've asked him questions about some of his military colleagues and what had happened. For example, I asked him questions about his relationship with Babangida, you know, in a very relaxed atmosphere. And he answered every single one of those questions. And he wasn't for a moment. He wasn't rattled or upset or anything. He answered all the questions. And no, I don't think he still has that military temper.
The president is someone who, first of all, believes in the competence of many of those who work around him. And in my case, I think I've enjoyed very special favor of him. And he believes that I am capable, that I can do the work. I think he, generally speaking, would ask me to perform certain functions aside from the constitutional functions that I perform. I've never known him to be second guessing on those kinds of things. No. What he usually would do is, expect that whatever it is will be performed within a given period of time. And I generally update him on practically everything that I'm doing.
He thinks on appointing you that you have the capacity to do the work. He tells you, call me when you have a problem. If you have a major challenge, tell him. He'll find you the means. That's the way he works. He doesn't trouble. Doesn't request anything from you. It doesn't bother you, but go do your job. Now, if you can't, he may tolerate a few mistakes. The next thing is to say, well, sir.
Absolutely not. In fact, I also recall my very first briefing with the president when he made me SSA diaspora, and I outlined, what I think should be done. By the time I was through, he said, well, you know what to do. That's why I made you my advisor on diaspora. So I expect you to do what you have to do. And since then, I don't have to seek permission to take action, because he believes in you, he has delegated. If you do something wrong, he's going to even tell you off in a very funny way. So he does not interfere. He's giving you a job, he expects you to do your job. If there are challenges, of course, you have to see him and seek his permission before them. But in the course of doing your normal duty, he really doesn't interfere. He expects results.
Since I took office, one of the things he expressed interest in pursuing was the completion and repairs of Ilorin-Jeba Mokwa Road and the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. And he understood it very clearly from his days as president and also from his days as PTF chairman. And that was a major transport artery for Nigeria. So he told me that he wanted me to pay attention to that. He also told me to advise him on how we could quickly complete the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. That it had taken too long, and it was a critical part of the Lagos port. And then he said to me that the second Niger Bridge was a priority for him as part of our transport. Beyond that, he has exerted no pressure on my ministry. But what I have done from time to time, of course, is periodically to seek to meet with him, either to brief him on some of these things he asked me to specifically pay attention to and the progress that was being made, or in some cases, whenever I had to go and represent the country, I was going out either to meetings in the Shelter Afrique or the meetings on the Abidjan-Lagos corridor, and I sensed that there was a possibility of any topical issue in my ministry that may come up. I make sure I see him, tell him that this matter might come up while I'm away. These are the solutions I put in place. And other than that, really and truly, just deal with issues at cabinet level when they come. I have memos. But essentially, he expects you to go and run your ministry.
Well, first, let me say that as a leader, he's somebody that wants to work with people who, like you said, you delegate to them, and they carry out their assignments and they come back. So he's not a micromanager, if that's your question. Certainly, to the extent I've worked with micromanagers, I think you'll be hard-pressed to call President Buhari a micromanager. Secondly, he's also a very visionary leader in the sense that he knows where he's going. So if you look at his vision for the country, peace and security, the war against corruption, and rebuild the economy and diversify the economy, he's been very consistent. He stayed with that message. So there's no lack of clarity on where he thinks we should go. And then finally, I would also say that in terms of just prioritizing, he was very clear on how to deal with the issue of security and has done it extremely well. He was very clear on the fact that he hates corruption with a passion. In fact, he made his famous expression, "We don't kill corruption, corruption will kill us." And you can see that even the responses have been such that, like, clearly not business as usual. And then I would say from point of view of the economy, which I've been very actively involved in, he certainly has supported the policies we come up with. I think, he provides leadership, and Nigeria needs leadership. We don't lack for people who are competent, who have the capacity to work, but we need purposeful, visionary leadership, and I think that's what the president provides.
It's right for people to say, yes, he delegates, but there's nothing bad in delegation. You don't want to sit on them and micromanage every step of the way what they do. So I don't think it's wrong to delegate, particularly when abdication does not come with that delegation. And with him, he does not abdicate. So he is not a micromanager. He is not a break down your neck type president. He lets you act. Someone who believes a lot in the people who work for him and with him, and he gives them a lot of latitude. And he also has a vice president who is more on the details side of things. So it's a very complementary relationship that they managed to forge, which the ministers working with them also understand to be the case, and that's been quite effective.
He is a very upright man, deeply religious, incorruptible, and pleasant, despite the fact that you don't see him smiling all over the place. But if you are one-on-one with him, you will see the pleasantness. He has a pleasant personality, and he is very kind.
His major strength is his integrity. If the man tells you something, you can take it to the bank. Another strength would be the fact that he values loyalty. He values loyalty. If you have shown him loyalty for life, he stands by you, unless you show yourself unworthy. If you see the kind of puritanical life the president lives, you cannot but say he is the master of integrity. His motive, his objective, his ways of doing things, his sincerity of purpose is not in doubt to every individual. That is why he is a man of the people will continue to support him.
Buhari is the cleanest person I've worked with. I'm not a Canadian. I studied him, and I saw in him quality. A top person. I was commissioner of education before, River State, 79. Before I became minister of petroleum, I left Buhari in 1984-86. He's not corrupt. He's very clean, transparent, reliable, hardworking.
I think his major strength is his character. Number one, this is a man who is very disciplined. And then his determination to deal with corruption in Nigeria is something that we all should just key into. He's very disciplined, he's a man of integrity. I know when he talks about how funds have been siphoned, you see the pain. You can't believe that anybody would do that. You can't even believe that those who do that are normal human beings, because are you going to sleep in two houses at the same time? And there was a time he was talking about this corruption, and he said, you know what, a lot of them will not even know what they have stolen. They can't even know what they have stolen. I know, so with that in his mind, he's determined that he must tackle the trade issue of corruption. And one thing we know, that he himself is not corrupt.
His number one strength, I think, is his integrity. He is perhaps one of the most honest men I know in my entire life, particularly in public service. His second strength is his sense of social justice. He always tries to be fair. He tries to look at everyone and tries to hear you out. He never rushes to judgment. You report the activities of an official. He doesn't rush to suspend the official or fire him. He asks for evidence. He asks for proof. And he has to see the proof once, twice, thrice before he acts, because he is so worried about being unjust to anyone that sometimes it takes him time before he takes decisions. But he does in the end. That's his second strength. I think his third strength is, a sense of vision where to take the country. As someone who was orphaned and from a very poor family, he has seen how Nigeria has been kind to him. A Nigeria that was kind to everyone, that gave people equal opportunities to realize their full potentials. And one of the things that bothers him, that makes him lament in our private conversations, is how Nigeria has changed, how a person of his background no longer has the level playing field and the opportunities he had. He repeatedly told us this story about how in his final year of secondary school there was a competition conducted by Elder Dempster Shipping Lines across Nigeria to take 4 Nigerians to Liverpool by ship. And he was in the same class as Shehu Eradua, whose father was a federal minister in charge of Lagos affairs, equivalent of FCT then, and Issa Keta, the education minister of the Nigerian. 2 were his classmates, yet he was selected to go to London instead of them. She said, today it's impossible for the son of the minister of education or the son of the minister of FCT to be in your class, and anyone is going to be selected for something like that, and it will not be one of them. He said, Nigeria has changed, and not for the better. And one of the things that he would want to do is to bring back that level playing field, equal opportunity for everyone, including the poorest of the poor in Nigeria.
Obviously, his personal integrity, is a real strength, because I think that's what has made him who he is. He doesn't compromise, and he's really somebody of real integrity, personal integrity. Another strength is discipline, is personal discipline. When we go on trips, and you go into these long meetings, especially like conferences, and what you find is that most of the leaders, they will just speak, get up, and not listen to the others, and go and have side events and so forth, and it tends to be about them, But he will sit down for hours, and he will not move. He will not get up and listen to everybody. And I remember, the very first such conference I attended with him, I didn't know this about him, and so some of the people were saying, I should go and tell him that there was a delegation that wanted to meet with him. So I went innocently to tell him that, if we could leave, because he had already spoken to meet with this other delegation. And he was not best amused, He said to me, no, he's not going anywhere. He's going to sit down and, listen to the others out of courtesy and everything else. And, you see all the other presidents getting up, 5 minutes, go there, come back, go there. But he has that amazing discipline, and respect for other speakers, which is a really admirable quality.
He has a good sense of humor. I believe personally that is easily approachable. And when you do that, you find that you are talking to a man with a good sense of humor, with a sense of history, and patriotism in him.
One is to say yes. He's one of the personally most upright human beings I have ever come across. And that is why, from day one, I have supported his ambition to govern this country. I was in the beginning when I first heard, the very first time around, that he's interested in the presidency. And I went all the way from Benin to Kaduna to say, this thing I'm hearing, is it true? I hope it is true. And It turned out to be true, and I think we worked together from then on.
The younger generation can't help but admire the humility, the resilience, and the depth of character of the man's persona.
His image as a myth is obviously related to his position as a leader as well as a politician. The masses of the people see Buhari a messiah, and in him they see someone who not only stands for the truth, but once he stands, the truth itself will also stand. Obviously, this is a mystical interpretation of someone's personality.
He has a splendid integrity. He's very patriotic. You know, when you have passion for anything you do, then it carries you through. I believe his passion for wanting Nigeria to toe the right line, his uprightness, we can't shave it off in all the things he's done. And his patriotism is not questionable.
Self-discipline. The president has control over self. And he is able to conquer a lot of these elements that drive human beings. The president doesn't aspire to money. He's not moved by it. He doesn't aspire to ownership of homes, buildings. He doesn't aspire to ownership of cars. Some of these things that are attractive to most people, they don't just give him the kick. So this is why he's able to control himself and drive the war against corruption.
You see, the president, I think that people tend to think that he has certain very fixed views on everything. No, that's not the case. He's the sort of person who engages on practically every topic, on every subject. And he's willing to hear what the arguments are, state his own point of view, and modify his view as necessary. I have never found him to be rigid, to be completely rigid and unbending in that way, except of course on matters of principle. And I can't fault anyone who on matters of principle says, well, this is where I stand on this is where I stand on that. And I think that generally speaking, he tends to be that sort of person. He's just not the sort of person who you find difficult to argue with or express your view and all that.
Yes, I believe he received counsel. I am not in a position to, for example, give him counsel. I know that he received counsel simply because before the elections, when we used to work and have meetings in his office, trying to package how he becomes the president of Nigeria, he used to attend those meetings with us. He sits at the head of the table, but he lets everybody gives his ideas. You know, that is somebody who is willing to listen. He hardly says anything, and he hardly contradicts anybody, except if he has another view, then he will say, if you do this, would it not be better? So he receives counsel, he listens. President Buhari actually listens more than talks.
Does, yeah. He's very, very open. And in fact, I remember one particular incident like this, a major meeting we attended on, it was fundraising actually, for another country, International Donors Conference, and almost every country there making pledges and things. And naturally, he felt that there's no point being there without making a pledge, and was inclined to, And I just whispered that, we didn't really need to, that the organizers understood that Nigeria was going through very difficult times and so forth, and that maybe, we need not do so. And, he reflected a while, and then, he accepted that, although initially he was inclined to, so he does, if you can convince him.
He's open to entertaining divergent and disagreeing views. I've had private discussions with him, expressing disagreement with some of the positions he has taken in public. And he has said, well, those were his views. And that now listening to me, he thinks that, well, I might be right. So disagreement is not a sin with President Buhari. He is the first to tell you that I am not going to do anything unless I understand it. So that's a man who wants to hear from you. And he'll tell you, if you bring anything to me, I don't understand. If you don't explain it properly, I won't approve it. I need to understand it. So that's not a man who has a preconceived position that is cast in any stone. That much, at least from my interactions, I can say to you. And I think that many of my colleagues, if not all of them, will confirm this disposition.
Maybe people don't know. Indeed, it is the lack of it that will probably make you not to be qualified to have that managerial skill. I pray to God that God should give me that enablement, that patience, because you will see President Muhammad Buhari taking it all, everybody, allowing you to flow. When everybody have now spoken, he will be in a position to look at what A, B, C, D, E, F, G have said, and he will now just maybe speak to things. Is that patience? Is not that lack of managerial anything, no. If it's a lack of managerial, it's somebody that maybe is clueless when they do anything, doesn't even know what to say. When you listen to him, everybody has spoken, and what he will just say, everybody will be shocked. That, wait a minute, he's taking note of each and what every one of us is saying. It's different from maybe somebody that, number one, maybe you are not even allowed to say anything, and when they want to say it, they have not just be any substance in what they're saying. No. Look at this Paris Club. I've used a very good example that everybody is now bet for it. Look at the bailout that he first did when we came. Look at the loan restructuring when he came. You know what? He listened to everybody. He now said, there's a problem. If what all of you governors are telling me is true, then there's a problem. That you cannot pay salary, you cannot do this, 30 something. Out of 36, about 31, 32 cannot pay salary, 31. Then there's a problem. Then there must be a way out. There was Mr. A, Mr. B, Mr. C, finance. Look at what you can do for the governors. Governors, go and think what you think you can do. So that's how the first bailout came into being. Maybe he did about 3 things immediately. Bailout, that was the first one. They restructured all the loans of all the states, all without exception. They restructured all our loans. They changed the rates, the interest rate they were collecting. They reduced it to single digits. It has never happened before. Not only that, they now said infrastructural development facility. They gave all the states in Nigeria equal amount to say, okay, at least this infrastructural deficit that we have, go and begin to fix it. We know it will not, 10 billion will not finish it. So it is only somebody that has that managerial acumen, managerial ability, and the patience to take everything in and come up with what I call a masterpiece. Some presidents were here when oil prices were about 100. Then somebody came when it was nosedive to 20-something, 29. Then you know the difference is there. A President Muhammad Buhari we may not say, oh yes, this is excellent. No, because even to President Muhammad Buhari himself, he knows where he wants to be. But clearly, I mean, people will give him credit for what he has done. He has gone beyond passive, beyond even credit. He's moving between credit and good because of where Nigeria is. Now, if you are going to situate what is happening before, if you give him excellence.
Having had the knowledge of management, we know you have autocratic management, you have democratic management, and you have the lesser kind of management. But this man, the Buhari we are talking about, the president of this country, he brings in the democratic style of management. His style of management is leadership-based, transparent. It's quite transparent, and he believes in accountability. So, but don't forget, his leadership style is democratic.
Since he became president, I have been watching, and since it is my party that is in the presidency, I noticed, since I don't work with him directly, that he has given a free hand to all his appointees, his ministers. He's the chairman of boards and parastatals, including the ministry who he is supposed to be in charge, the Minister of Petroleum, the Minister of Petroleum. Even that, he has virtually handed the responsibility to the Minister of State, who reports to him. So I think it is a most democratic style of governance.
I think it's his genuine love for the country. I think that's something that always appears to be genuine love for the country and for people, especially the people. It's something that I don't think is expressed enough. I mean, he's a quiet, reserved person, but he's also someone who has a great love for the country. You know, his concerns and it's something that I think is expressed enough. He's very, 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 very concerned about it. It always reminds us, I know that reminds me that maybe you don't understand because you've been in private practice, and in private practice, I've always earned a salary. There's nothing I've done in my life beyond earning a salary. I earn a salary every month. And for that reason, I understand when people are not paid. I understand when people are owed money when they're not paid. And when people have no money at all, I understand it. And he does, he understands. I don't think that that's expressed enough. I don't think it's well known enough.
He came to my mother's room and he said, "Look, I have nothing. I have nothing for you. And if you want to study, study hard and make it, because this is what I have for you, your education. So you better buckle up and study hard and make it." And since then, I still have his image, just standing by the wall and telling us that. And I realized how lucky I am, because in this society that we're in, I wonder how many fathers would tell their children that he's a very realistic father. This is reality. He is showing us reality, and he always talks to us about the leaders that passed away without leaving anything behind, and it didn't stop their children from making it.
It particularly pains me when I hear people calling names and say all sorts of things that are unkind. If you should be kind towards any man, please be kind towards President Buhari, because he's actuated by love for the country. And he loves human beings. He loves his family, he loves his friends, he loves Nigerians. So when I hear all those unkind things said about him, I feel bad. I think it's to know how fair-minded he is and how broad-minded he is, because the assumption very often is that, he's very partial on a religious basis or on an ethnic basis, and that's not the case at all. I first saw this when there was a big issue that he has got Nigeria into the Islamic alliance without consulting or anything. And we went together to Saudi Arabia, and I remember they wanted a communique written, and I went to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Saudi Arabia, and they gave me this communique, and I was a bit, concerned about certain things, including the fact that it was stated categorically that Nigeria was a member of the Islamic Alliance. I brought this, to his attention, and and looked at it, and he understood and appreciated that we had not formally joined or anything like that, and that it would not be accurate, to put that. And he supported me in making that correction and everything. But back home, everybody assumed that, he had forced Nigeria into this and so on and so forth. And so when discussing with him some of those experiences, you realize and you see that he really is somebody who is not as parochial as people think.
Well, there was a day I was speaking with the president, and he's always relaxed and down to earth, and you always have a good conversation. I mean, you will know if he doesn't want to carry on a topic, but you will know when he wants to carry on with the topic, And had a good conversation, laughing. I said, "Mr. President, you know what? I want Nigerians to see you the way I see you. I'm privileged to sit in front of you. I want them to see you the way I see you. So that is the gap that needs to be filled. And it's not him that will do it, it's all of us. I just want Nigerians to know that he is a good man. And I believe that, Almighty Allah will make it possible for him to fulfill his dream and vision for Nigeria. But we all have to work with him.
to make that happen?
I'd like them to know that he is extremely troubled by the suffering we went through, we're still going through, or getting out of the recession. And he wants to end the terrible cycle of corruption that doesn't then allow us to grow, because a lot is lost. One of the fastest and best things he did was the TSA. It's been extremely difficult for anybody to access loose funds now and play with, because everything is electronic and you can't enter the treasury anymore and tick. He is also very concerned about security, because what's the point? If anybody can seize any territory of Nigeria and become king and lord over that territory, well, then there is no country. And I think he would like to see a country greater, better than what we have. And he knows that we have a big future. And that Africa looks up to Nigeria. We are more than half the population of West Africa. West Africa is 375 million. We're almost 200 million. We have capacity to feed Africa. We are showing it now. We have capacity for industrial growth. We have capacity in human resource to meet virtually any challenge. What is tying us down? Lack of discipline and organization. And above all, the youth. We were in Owerri during the campaigns, and I was with him in the vehicle. And there was a lot of traffic, very congested streets. And he said to me, "What's happened? Why is it so congested here?" And I said, "Well, everybody has moved from the villages to Owerri." I said, "But that's terrible." So why? Because there's no life in the village. I said, "But what do we do about that?" He said, "Sir, if we win, we have to take life back to the village." And I said, that's a good idea. That's where this whole idea of small-scale industry is going down and down. We buy machines now and sell to people at almost half price. Because for many young people, it's very difficult to open an LC, go to the port, get a loan. We bring and give them. It's our country. So that is what I think. Now, some people know that he is very, very concerned. But there are those who say, no, we don't like him. He has spoiled business. He's interfering with our way of life. Things were easier. There are those who choose to use the recession as an excuse to hate him. But South Africa has just gone into recession. Venezuela, in disaster. People cross the bridge to Colombia to buy bread. People give their children off to orphanages, and they can't feed them anymore. They have more oil than we have. They too were hit by the oil crisis. Somehow we manage not to get too far down, and we're climbing back. So I think Nigerians should give him a chance, and I think we'll get through. I think we're heading there.
I don't know his name, but...
Especially now that we learned that oil and gas shouldn't be relied upon. The days are coming when this country's prosperity will reach everyone. We have a duty to God and man to make Nigeria work. Especially for the younger generation to say, I love my country, I can die for my country. They're not able to say that yet because they are in stress.
I think the one thing that he probably has not sufficiently got across, he has said so in many words, is how deeply touched he is by the army of young people who are seeking opportunities for employment. That is something that really touches him. That is something that I know that if there was a magic wand, rather than a long building process such as this, that he will reach for that magic wand. That's something he hasn't communicated sufficiently. And I think that he's alluded to it, because I was once in a bus with him during the campaign, and I think the vice president also, when he said, what are we going to do? How are we going to get these young people to work? Even during the campaign, it was an issue for him. And you have to understand the president that you have. He's not a man of many words. And so sometimes you need to patiently listen to the few that he has to say in order then to dimension the extent he intended to cover.
In fact, the president is entertained greatly by his grandchildren. He likes them around himself. The president watches television a lot. He reads newspapers a lot. And he also spends time in the garden. He likes nature a lot.
I want Nigerians to know that this man does not want anything for himself. This man simply wants to see Nigeria work properly, develop as a leading country in Africa and one of the leading countries in the world. That's why he's fighting corruption. He has now managed to take away insecurity in the country. So I want Nigerians to know that he has sincerity of purpose. It is difficult for a country to have a president that has sincerity of purpose, who does not want anything. He has been putting all his energy to see that everything goes well in Nigeria. So I want Nigerians to believe in him, to believe that he wants what is best for this country.
You look at all the photographs of myself and so you see he is able to crack a joke with a straight face, you know. So you will be the one laughing at something is wrong, and you keep a straight face, you know. He's able to, and he has all manner of jokes, and he has a great sense of humor. You would not believe that he is, you know, because he just has an endless string of jokes and things like that. So you'll be laughing, and people wonder, why is this fellow laughing like this? He really does have a very, very interesting sense of humor.
People see him as this stern, serious person, and he's very much an introvert. So he doesn't get to relax with people quickly. But once he is relaxed with you, and you are with him, he will be cracking jokes, you'll be laughing and rolling on the floor. Of course, we can't roll on the floor now. He's president. We have to behave ourselves. But in those days when we were in opposition, it's always a pleasure to go to his living room and talk, and then you start cracking his jokes, and you know, you laugh your heart out. He has a great sense of humor, but only when he's relaxed with you, when he is comfortable in his skin with you. When he's meeting you for the first time or second time, he's a bit he's a bit of an introvert. But once he relaxes, and you know, he's really quite funny. I know it's difficult for people to conceptualize, but trust me, President Buhari is very funny.
Not very many Nigerians know that he is actually a very, very funny man. The president has a repertoire of jokes and proverbs and stories about his experiences in Congo, in the military, as Minister of Petroleum. And if he is relaxed and he is comfortable with you, he engages. Nigerians don't often believe that. That's the truth. He's very funny man. He can laugh at himself. He picks up the newspaper, and during the campaign particularly, he will say, have you seen the cartoon in Daily Trust, what they said about me this morning? And he will repeat it and laugh over it. So he's an immensely jovial personality.
I can't, so many, for me is diaspora. And then he'll say, always joke about, you know, okay, I'm going to leave you behind with your people. You know, a lot of things but there's a classic one, which I'll never forget. There's this lady, one of us, and a family friend of the Buhari's, Joy. I mean, Joy walks into a room where Mr. President, and Mr. President said, "Oh, Joy, you're wearing a wig." She said, "Mr. President, how do you know I'm wearing a wig?" I said, don't I see them? When it's scratching them, they do like this. So you see, the president, why that you think he's you know, hard and stiff and all that, is noticing that even women, he knows how you scratch your head when you have on a wig. He's a very fair person. And of course, legendary humor.
On that day, we were going to Benin Republic, and in the morning, I was in a native dress and I put on a cap. When he got out of his house and saw me, he said, this cap is too big. And then there was another day, I put on a small cap. When he saw me, he said, this cap is too small. So he notices everything. His personal photographer, Bayo. Bayo is of the younger generation. His trousers will not touch, he will not cover his shoe. Therefore, you see the socks he's wearing. And it's this multicolored type that young generation likes. So one day, Bayo strode in, and he was wearing a one-color sock. President said, "Hey,
and the multicolors. So it shows me that he notices everything. He notices everything.
The president has this thing that most Nigerian leaders don't have, as you said yourself, a sense of humor. But the president, if you notice with him, in fact, he is one who deprecates himself. He comes into a meeting and he doesn't like it icy. He likes to break that ice and then warm up the place with humor. Do I have experience? Yes, of course. I remember on myself, there was a day it was raining outside. And I wear my agbada starched. And the president said, well, so let's see how you go out there. He had no difficulty himself walking into the rain. And he knew that, of course, when you get drenched in a starched cloth, you are messed up. And he looked at me, he said, well, let's see how you go out there in the rain. And that's the kind of president we have.
You remember the day he got up in the speech and said, people call me Baba, go sleep. How can you can't have somebody better than that who is ready to accept a laugh, a fun, poking fun at himself. And the one good passion that both of us share is that he loves cartoons.
I don't have too many interactions with him, but I hear him say things that you like. I remember that when he was talking about one occasion of a political rally, and said people brought money there and they were spending money. You know, he said they spent so much dollars that dollar became devalued. You know, I mean, you know, I mean, for the first time I was hearing someone talking about devaluation of currency, you know, in that manner. So I think people who say he has a great sense of humor actually know what they are talking about.
My prayers every day, at least 5 times a day, because thanking God that He allowed people to understand and believe me. This goodwill that I enjoy from the masses is what is keeping me in politics. And of course, my central objective to provide transparent and accountable government.
But to our very surprise, he released the money, and the APC governors became very much afraid. But he did that. You know, he also introduced World Bank program on state fiscal responsibility, aimed at transparency of state affairs, you know, budgeting process and procurement process. And we competed, and we won several millions of dollars, which helped states, you know, like ours, to develop their infrastructure. Mr. Chairman, my condolences first go to you, our dear President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. God made you his destiny helper, his friend, and his brother. The whole country and beyond acknowledge the honor you accorded him in life and the decent burial you offered him in death. His burial was a great moment of emotional outpour and deep grief for you and our First Lady. No wonder Arise News captured that moment greatly and joined other Nigerians to appreciate you. I too say you are a good brother, indisputably a good friend of our late president. To the family he left, I pray God to grant you the strength and the fortitude during this period of mourning. To friends and associates, let us be consoled by the sweet legacy of his life that death cannot take away, and through which we treasure his memory. To the governor and people of Katsina State, I say your help is in our God. My take about his life and his legacies is that while we live, let us live unto the Lord. And while we serve, let us serve with the fear of God. For life is only but a journey. May the soul of our departed leader and former president rest in perfect peace. Amen.
Now, thank you. We invite the representative
of the family of late President Muhammadu Buhari, his son, Yusuf Muhammadu Buhari. Take a word to
Good evening, everyone. I would like to acknowledge the protocols already that on behalf of the entire members of the late Muhammad Buhari family, I wish to sincerely extend our deepest gratitude to Mr. President, His Excellency Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the First Lady, Senator Odurani Tinubu, the Vice President, His Excellency Hashim Shetima, and his wife, Hajiana Natasha, for your outstanding foreign support received by the family from the time he took ill until he peacefully passed on, which was Sunday, 13th of July, 2025. It has showed that he was regarded far more than a politician, but regarded as a friend and a father. To all members of the Federal Executive Council, for the care and befitting state burial afforded to our late father, we appreciate you all. I also wish to thank the Senate President, Speaker of the House of Representatives, and all the distinguished and honorable members of the National Assembly for honoring the memory of our late father during the state burial in Devra. I will also not forget to mention and convey our appreciation for the support of the Attorney General of the Federation and members of the Judiciary, Honorable Minister of Foreign Affairs, the Nigerian High Commission in London, the Governor of Katsina State, Borno State as well, and all his colleagues for identifying and standing firmly with us during this difficult year. Let me specially and specifically acknowledge the Chief of Defense Staff, the service chiefs, heads of security and law enforcement agencies, as well as all members of the armed forces of Nigeria, our late father's first and primary constituent, for the esprit de corps, solidarity, and the befitting military burial given to our late father. Finally, we thank all members of the diplomatic corps, traditional and religious leaders, political associates, friends, family members, the press, and indeed all Nigerians at home and in diaspora for the numerous calls, messages, condolence visits, and prayers offered for the repose of the gentle soul of our departed father. Your visits, calls, and prayers symbolize a great honor to the memory of our late father, and we're sincerely grateful for all the support and solidarity extended to the family. May Allah continue to bless us all and to bless all of us. Thank you, Dad. Thank you, Dad. Thank you, Dad. May Allah continue to bless, to guide and protect you throughout your tenure. Long live Mr. President. Long live the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you, Yusuf. Mr. President, before we take the national anthem, lead to two prayers, one Muslim, one Christian, for the repose of party people. The Deputy Senate President will take a prayer while Pope Uzodi, my chairman, Progressive Governors, for the Christian prayer.
Kismet first. Before we take the prayers, may I in honor of his memory of the Federal Executive Council expanded, and we adopt the naming of University of my degree with a new name as Muhammadu Buhari University Degree. Thank you very much. Now the prayer.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم صلوا على النبي الكريم ربنا أفي علينا صبرا وتوفنا مسلمين ربنا إننا آمنا كلنا ذنوبنا وقنا عذاب النار ربنا آتنا في الدنيا الحسنة وفي الآخرة الحسنة وقنا عذاب النار ربنا وتقبل الدعاء وربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.
Let us pray. Almighty and ever-living God, we thank you for this moment of your glory. We commit our country, Nigeria, into your holy hands. We commit Mr. President, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and members of his government into your protective hands. We present the spirit of the former president, President Muhammadu Buhari, into your able hands. Forgive him all his sins, receive his spirit with mercy. Grant him mercy, show him love and protection. Grant his family and all those left behind, affected by his passing, the government and people of Katsina State, and indeed Nigerians, the fortitude to bear this great loss. Listen to our testimonies, O Lord, we pray, and reward him accordingly. May his sacrifice and contributions towards our national growth fetch us unity as a nation, fetch us development, fetch us prosperity, and a better and greater nation, to the glory of your holy name. Lead our president and indeed all of us here gathered back to our homes safely and peacefully. And may the soul of President Muhammad Buhari and the souls of all the faithful departed, through the mercy of God, rest in perfect peace. Amen.
Sorry, before the national anthem, Mr. President will have a photograph with members of the family. After that, we'll take the national anthem. National. National anthem.
Where you go now? You know they eat salmon? I went inside to go and bring my salmon. I came back, I was calling you. I did not see you.
IBKR stands out in the crowd. We offer professional pricing and low borrowing costs. Our clients have the choice of investing globally or locally in stocks, options, futures, forex, bonds, and funds from a single unified platform. Our premier technology enables you to optimize speed and efficiency, perform sophisticated portfolio analysis, and manage your accounts. Start investing today at ibkr.ie.
Advert.
State led other mourners to Daura for the Fidel prayer for the late former president. Other top dignitaries at the prayer are former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, former Governor of Anambra State and the presidential candidate of the Labour Party in 2023, Peter Obi, and former Governor of Kaduna State, Nasir El-Rufai. The Federal High Court in Lagos has discharged the former Governor of Ekiti State, Ayodele Fayose, on charges of money laundering and theft amounting to 6.9 billion naira. Justice Chukwujiku Aneke discharged the former governor after upholding his no-case submission filed to challenge his trial by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC. The court held that the EFCC had not been able to link Fayose to the crime, nor was a prima facie case made against him to warrant a further defense. In a dramatic twist, The Ekiti State former governor Ayodele Fauci is seen celebrating his court victory by eating amala, a local delicacy, alongside some site workers expressing how grateful he is. Ahead of the 2027 elections, the All Progressives Congress in Oyo State is closing ranks to make the party formidable enough to displace PDP come 2027. The Minister of Power, Bayo Adilabu, at a meeting with APC stakeholders in Ishayin, Kajola, Itesiwaju, and Iwajowa local government areas of Okeogun, Oyo State, assures the zone of better treatment if the APC takes over the mantle of leadership. He assures them that the renewed hope agenda of President Bola Tinubu would effectively target grassroots and agrarian communities to ensure equity and poverty reduction. In Delta State, hundreds of members of the informal sector have expressed their collective support for the re-election bid of President Bola Tinubu and Governor Sheriff Oborivori ahead of the 2027 general elections. The endorsement came from a broad coalition of artisan and trade groups across various sectors. Chairman of the association, Ifeanyi Abanom, affirmed the group's commitment to the continued
Avec Sigis, chaque ingrédient a un sens, car on s'en tient à l'essentiel.
Contest as a presidential candidate. Indeed, Muhammad Buhari has now emerged, the president-elect.
In 2015, Nigerians voted for an opposition candidate against an incumbent for the first time in her 55-year history.
Muhammad Buhari, do solemnly swear.
General Muhammadu Buhari took the oath of office as Nigeria's 6th elected president.
Republic of Nigeria. And that I will preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So help me God.
I tried 3 times. 2003, I think 2007, and 2011. And I ended up in Supreme Court 3 times.
It was evident that a lot had gone wrong from the beginning. Oil price fell to something like $34 or $28 a barrel at some point. The militants in the Niger Delta were blowing up pipelines and other oil assets. So production actually fell to something like below 700,000 barrels. It was a very bumpy, I must say, to put it as mildly as possible.
We set up a transition committee to work with the outgoing government. They refused to work with us and only insisted that they were going to give us handover notes on the 28th of May, 2015. And that was exactly what happened. So until we took over the government, we didn't even really know how bad the situation was in the country economically. It was difficult. The infrastructure in Nigeria at that time had gone so bad. Nothing is working. The roads are terrible, no bridges, no railways. The airports have collapsed. Security architecture has gone bananas. Every aspect of governance has become so difficult.
The damage was too much to the extent that what was left in the coffers of the SS School account from $68 billion to $2.5 billion. It was the same time that we brought out the fact that the former Emir of Kano had listened to the president to say $49 billion was missing from the coffers of an NPC.
The country was in a disorderly state. The greatest challenge then was insurgency, and that insurgency was overrunning the country. The insurgency started in Northeast. It moved into Northwest. It moved into North Central. It moved into the federal capital, Abuja. It had gone as far as Kogi,
or as near as Kogi to the southwest. After Kogi, where would we go? Southwest. If it overruns southwest, where next? South. And what is left of it? You weren't sure that Nigeria will be there in the next couple of weeks. Nigerians have forgotten that in 2014, 2013, 2014, and part of 2015, hardly a day passed without one bomb exploding in one part of the country or the other. Most people would not want to spend the night in Abuja because Abuja was clearly one of the safest cities in Nigeria then. The United Nations headquarters was bombed, the Post headquarters was bombed, the Yanyam market was bombed, some other supermarkets. As far as I remember, 13 local governments out of 20 in Borno State alone was under the complete control of Boko Haram. When I say complete control, I'm saying this is a situation where the Boko Haram had destroyed their own government. They fired emirs, installed emirs, collected taxes, and to all government purposes, they were in charge.
People were not even able to come out to the mosques and churches to pray. People were not allowed to go to the markets.
In 2015, I was then a Major General. I'm still within the Northeast in terms of my deployment. The situation in the Northeast then had deteriorated to such an extent that 3 major states in the Northeast, namely Adamawa, Borno, and Yobe, were at the heat of it all. The worst of them all was Borno State, where about 17 local governments were under the red control of the Boko Haram terrorists. In Adamawa, you had about 2 actually. Then the third one was just partially. And then the same number, about 2 or 3 in Yobe State. In other parts of the country, you had, of course, the Niger Delta. But then, of course, coming out from the throes of the militancy, and of course, the threats had not abated completely. But of course, we were making gradual progress. And of course, there were also issues of some part of the northwest that had a lot of issues too, with respect to banditry, cattle rustling, among several others. And so this was where we were in 2015, security-wise.
Wix vous propose la puissance de l'IA pour créer le site dont vous avez besoin avec des fonctionnalités pour entreprises intégrées.
Now, these were just the domestic issues we met on the ground, but there were other associated threats coming from outside Nigeria. The most immediate was the emerging threat, eastern neighbor Cameroon, with the secessionist agitation by the Amazonians in the Anglophone part of Cameroon, and they were already shifting into Nigerian territory. They had already infiltrated about 11 states of Nigeria.
Where did these people get these numbers from?
Coming in as a fallout of the situation in Iraq and Syria. When the terrorists and the insurgents were flushed out of those 2 countries, then these criminal elements in turn started moving southwards into the Sahel, and their ultimate destination was Nigeria, by virtue of the fact that Nigeria had a very large population and it had the largest economy.
The image of Nigeria was at a very, very low ebb. There was the unfortunate event of the Chibok girls that had really captured the imagination of the world.
Like millions of people across the globe, my husband and I are outraged and heartbroken over the kidnapping of more than 200 Nigerian girls from their school dormitory in the middle of the night.
The Nigerian global brand was very, very seriously tarnished. There was a scandal, about $20 billion US that was missing.
2014. And when we came in 2015, 27 states out of 36 could not pay salaries. It took this President Muhammadu Buhari, irrespective of your party affiliation, to give what he called project support to all these states.
I think the key thing for me as an individual was I thought the country had reached unfathomable levels of corruption in the last administration. You had public sector, police, government workers not being paid salaries and allowances. You even have the federal government providing bailouts to different states of the federation.
Nigerians were not happy with the government in 2014 in the run-on to the 2015 general elections. They felt that the economy was badly handled. They felt security was a major concern, and they felt that the government was not doing a good job with tackling corruption. Even the government that was leaving had predicted that the economy was heading into a recession.
In 2016, we went into a recession. This recession lasted 3 quarters. In the 4th quarter, we exited recession. The economy was very much dependent on import of food items, especially rice. Rice was costing the country a lot in terms of imports to the country. So we set out to stabilize the economy, to rein in inflation.
And after he took on the oath of office, and he said, Governor, what are people importing? So I said, different things. So people import rice, people import maize, people import toothpick, people import cement, people import different things. He said, but well, we're importing all these things when we can produce them in the country. I said, unfortunately, sir, that's where we are. He said, no, but we shouldn't be importing what we can produce in the country. We shouldn't be importing what we can produce in the country. Mr. Governor, I am interested in growing the agricultural base of this country. I have at least close to about 14 to 16 million people who voted for me. These are the masses. And I would like you to concentrate on how to grow agriculture, particularly for our smallholder farmers, our farmers in the village. These are the people that voted for me, and I would like to bequeath to the country a legacy where those who voted for me, even when I'm leaving office, will be happy that I was here, that they enjoyed the dividend of democracy under me, because at least they were able to have access to cheap credit for them to engage in their agricultural or farming activities. He said, well, I would love to see a situation where we're able to do something for these smallholder farmers in our rural communities, because we need to improve the wealth in our rural communities in the country.
In the last quarter of 2016, President Buhari invited us through his chief of staff, the late chief of staff, Malan Abakari, invited me especially as the president in a meeting with the two of them to see how can availability of fertilizer be in the country and affordable. That was their concern, and the challenge of the foreign exchange in the country. I remember saying to the president, if he has the guts to do what we're going to ask him, what I'm going to ask him to do. And his chief of staff, late Malan Abakari, blessed memory, said, how can you ask a general if he has a gut? I said, I knew generals that didn't have a gut to do that. He said, like who? I said, like the former head of state, who will not touch anything to do with revolutionary of the fertilizer. But he said, you're a Fulani man, you can do it. We gave him the template of how to revolutionize the agricultural sector. We have 11 blending plants in the country. Can we get them up and running? And can we get the raw material that we don't have in the country? We have to import 37% of raw material, potash and phosphate. Phosphate from Morocco, potash from Belarus in the Balkan. So, and he said, let's do it. And I said, how fast does he want this to be done? He said, like yesterday.
aim is to make sure that we grow what we eat and eat what we grow. Nigerians before they depend on the importation of rice from Taiwan and other places. But Nigerians are now exporting rice. And there are people who left air-conditioned offices, went back to the land, and they haven't regretted it. So really, the campaign we conducted in asking Nigerians to be self-reliant. We have the land, we have the resources, we have the people, then why should we depend on anybody to feed us or to do any favor to us?
This is one of 10 rice mills across the country that the government is constructing. This is all to increase agricultural productivity in the country, especially rice. We have done so much in rice. This particular administration has done so much to the point that Nigeria is the #1 producer of rice in Africa.
Pélican. Découvrons le rituel de service Pélican. Des bières non filtrées qu'il faut toujours retourner pour apprécier leur goût intense et généreux. Pélican. Retournez, savourez.
This is white maize.
Very good, yeah, that's good. Nice grains.
Yeah, the season ended in December 2021.
All right, okay, very good.
The fact that we have achieved food security is very important. And again, people underscore that, but we are a population of 210 million people. And if a government is not able to enable its people to feed itself, then there's a problem. Because it will be very difficult to continue to live on importing food. If we have to import food for the large population that we have, then we won't be able to do anything else because all the money will go to food. But what he's done is enable people to actually farm. Farming became a business, and people are now making very good returns.
Today, the world is suffering from a major food crisis. The fallout in the Russian-Ukraine war has been felt more in the kitchens and around the dinner tables globally. President Buhari's drive to make agriculture a driving force in Nigeria's economy has spared Nigeria, a country of over 200 million people. Nigeria is not only able to feed its population, it is also exporting food to other countries.
If you depend on somebody for 2 or 3 meals a day, then you are in trouble. The sense into a nation, any nation that depends on anybody to provide either food or security for that nation, then that nation has compromised its independence and its integrity. What we want and what we tell Nigerians is that they must be self-reliant. They have the land, they have the resources.
One of the challenges we have in the past, because the utilization of fertilizer per hectare, we have the lowest. And the global practice is between 200 to 300 kg per hectare. And in Africa, we're between 8 to 20. The Nigerian was in the bracket of 8 kg per hectare, which means your yield, the yield for the farmer is very low because of the lack of utilization of availability of enough fertilizer by his trench farming. But with this revolution that was done, today I can boastfully tell you the farmers have moved to average of 200 kg per hectare. It has increased the yield, and that's the result of why you see the ban of importation of rice and some agri-commodity, because we are now attaining to being self-sufficient to that production. That has put more money to the farmer. That has increased. Agriculture has become a business instead of a development in the country. So these policies have helped in revolutionary agriculture, and are working with the central bank governor in this program and the anchor borrowing program, where they support the farmers with soft loan. Almost 15 million farmers are enjoying this facility and the inputs.
Today we've grown our corporate program to a point where we're doing 21 different agricultural crops today. Rice, maize, sorghum, even palm oil. We're doing different products. Cassava. Because these are smallholder farmers, they're always having financial challenges. And we're going to develop a special program where, rather than give them money to go and buy the farming inputs or agri inputs, that we will give them high yield seedlings. We will give them fertilizers. We will give them other agricultural inputs. From where they take those to go and farm. When they finish farming, we don't even wait for them to sell. We put up a program where we recover the maize or the cassava or the paddy from them, and we have our own arrangement where we sell to recover our loans. This is a novel idea that we developed, and I must say it worked. Today, I would say that we are self-sufficient in rice production. We increased the number of fertilizer blending plants from 5 to over 50 today. We've created jobs. Under Anchor program, we've lent over 1 trillion naira to over 4.5 million direct 4.5 million smallholder farmers. We've cultivated over 6 million hectares of land. Those are extremely good initiatives that are yielded good results.
Nigeria is self-sufficient in food, that we don't have to import food to be able to feed our people. So for anybody that is importing food, they're doing it as a matter of luxury, not as a matter of necessity.
No government, no administration in the recent past that has put more money. That has put more money, in particular in the hands of smallholder farmers. No one has diversified the economy using agriculture than this particular administration. Young people in this administration are coming into farming more than in the previous administrations.
Talk about family. Are you married? I will not ask you directly. Are you married? You will not tell me. I'll tell you yourself. How are you doing? I saw that you represent to find out some information about it. You say yes. I will not tell you anything. I said okay. So I'm waiting to give you information about it. What exactly are you doing? He said, I just saw an advert. I'm putting my name. I said, okay. You are the right place. That is my job. You need to call me. Yes, give me. They call me. If you call me, I don't see technique. You can't get me. So now this is what is happening. I said, okay, this is how it goes.
In his previous 3 attempts at the presidency, one group had believed in Buhari to stay with him. They are the forgotten in Nigeria. The poor will only matter during elections. As president, Buhari decided they would be his priority.
Looking at the levels of poverty, looking at the levels of unemployment, it was evident that we needed to do something that would, to a certain extent, ameliorate the levels of poverty, unemployment, etc.
There are 2 major challenges we are confronted with. One is that of poverty. It was extraordinary in the land, famine. And then the first recoveries, I'm talking of financial recoveries that was made by President Muhammadu Buhari, was that of $322 million recovered from Switzerland, asset recovered. And President Muhammadu Buhari now took a decision to ensure the deployment of the $322 million into alleviating the poverty that was prevailing. And that was what gave rise to social investment program, the Empower, the school feeding, the public works, the small-scale enterprises support, and a host of other social investment programs.
We started with 200,000. By 2018, we had a batch B of 300,000, making it 500,000. Out of this 500,000, that we have exited in 2021. Most of them, about 109,000 of them, have become entrepreneurs. They are now employers of laborers on their own, and they are doing very well.
I studied economics in my first degree. I did finance in my second degree. And I'm currently doing things in
After my NYC in Kebbi State, I moved to Abuja where I reside. So I didn't have any job. I heard about Empower when the federal government established it, and I applied. I got it. We've been trained. After training, we are giving every month. We are being given some stipend of 30,000 naira. And Empower Student A, because they have about 3 badges now. I'm badge A. I was able to establish myself. I have a registered company. This is our farm. We also have one in Kubwa, but because I'm closer here, so I decided to bring it to this Kabusa part. We just harvested last week. If not, you would have seen some people coming to buy. All these people that roast fish around, they come to buy.
how much will I be able to get in a month?
You have the high, behind the leg, right?
I will not tell you this. It is wrong.
For the second
I currently run laboring adult education based in Jabia region. Before I joined Empower, I've been working in a private primary school, a secondary school. And of course, all of us understand that when you work in a private school, you get underpaid. Empower has actually helped me to get these things done on my own, to push my vision outside. So without Empower, I wouldn't be where I am today. Empower opened my eyes to a lot of opportunity which I could not have seen without people. By God's grace, I have 12 co-workers, staff that work with me to run this project together. And we have been doing this. We have 3 permanent centers in Abuja. We have another one in Besan Airport. We have another one in Masaka, Nasarawa State.
Ɗinkin sana'a ne amma da ban da hanyar da zan siya keke. Haya ne nake karɓar keken a wata ina biya. To da ba a ba mu wannan tallafin ni da mijina ne na yake amma muna shan wahala. Yaran mu kamar yake ba su zuwa makaranta na saboda ba kuɗin da za mu biya musu makaranta.
Gaskiya a da kam muna sha wahala da rashin lafiya idan aka yi rashin lafiya ka yadda za mu samu kuɗin asibiti da yanayin abincin kamun damuna ya kare rani ya kare shi mun saya abinci da ke da ke.
Amma yanzu da aka fara ba mu wannan tallafin abin ya yi sauri muna ɗan sauri da shi kuma muna ɗan yaran mu suna ɗan makaranta da babba muna ɗan biya miki yana da karatu kananan ma dai dukan su dai uku na samu kuma ana kawo min ɗinki ga suna wannan ɗinki ne ana kawo min.
Muka samu kankasi talafi ya shigo to muna noma kamar dawa nan sai mu samu kamar buhu 4 gida nan sai mu samu kamar buhu 10 muna samun rogo muna samun da yawa kafin yanzu ka.
And our main focus is on the ordinary citizens of this country, people who are below the economic pyramid, people who have been affected by one form of disaster or the other. We feed children every day, primary school children, primary 1 to 3. We are feeding about 9.8 million children now. And that also runs to billions of naira on a monthly basis. The conditional cash transfer that we support poor and vulnerable households with 5,000 naira every month. We are supporting almost 2 million, about 1.9 million households with this 5,000 naira. That also runs into billions of naira on a monthly basis. It is unprecedented. It has never happened, honestly. And all in a bid to see that people are being supported, people are being catered for, people are being uplifted out of the status they are in.
The homegrown feeding is for most local agriculture, that's local production, food production. Secondly, it also creates jobs at the local community level.
When there was a morning, the president called me after about a year and a half of the program. He said, that he was listening to I believe it was a BBC service. And he said he was struck by the fact that there were two young men from Bauchi State, I recall he said, or from Bauchi State, who were interviewed by the BBC. And they said, look, we got this, we applied, we heard that there was Empower, we applied. We didn't know anybody, we didn't know any senator, we didn't know anybody. We applied, and we were given a chance to be on it, we were employed, and we've been paid month by month. We are teaching in a primary school, and he said he was, so we must thank Baba Buhari for this. And he said to me, he said, you know, this is really, like, it must be very, very impactful.
With the recession behind it, it was time to build on the gains of his first term as the president's second term began. Then, an enemy the world never saw coming crippled the globe.
The World Health Organization has now confirmed what many epidemiologists have been saying for weeks. The coronavirus is a pandemic. There are now more than 120,000 known cases in 114 countries.
I was part of a group of global experts, and we were brought together by the World Health Organization to go to China. And by that time, you know, the outbreak was already a mature outbreak in China, and they had shut down the entire country, especially the Wuhan province. The first thing that struck me when I got to China was what it means to lock down a country as big as that.
Ça, c'est Théo et David. Pour eux, un Ricard, c'est un volume de Ricard, 7 volumes d'eau et des glaçons. Ça, c'est un Ricard à la Théo. Et ça, c'est un Ricard à la David. C'est pareil, mais à Marseille, c'est pas pareil. Ricard, bon, à Marseille.
Voici 3 bonnes raisons qui vont donner envie à votre équipe commerciale d'utiliser Monday Sales CRM. Premièrement, il est facile à utiliser. Vous pouvez voir l'ensemble du pipeline de votre équipe dans un seul espace. Ainsi, chaque collaborateur retrouve toutes les informations dans les moindres détails. Qu'il s'agisse d'une opération rapide, comme le changement du statut d'un prospect, ou de quelque chose d'important, comme l'envoi d'un email groupé à des centaines de prospects. Tout se fait sans effort, surtout si vous disposez d'un assistant doté d'intelligence artificielle. Deuxièmement, il est personnalisable, sans aucun code. Vous pouvez tout personnaliser, des colonnes au champ, en passant par des couleurs. Créez vos espaces de transaction et vos automatisations pour faire avancer les contrats en continu. Et cerise sur le gâteau, tout est réuni dans un espace unique. Avec une vision à 360 degrés, vous saurez à tout moment où en est chaque contrat afin de le conclure avec succès. Et ce n'est pas tout. Vos tableaux de bord personnalisables vous permettent de relier toutes les informations pour repérer dès aujourd'hui les opportunités de demain. Alors, ça vous plaît? Essayez Monday Sales CRM gratuitement.
Where are these guys, the Eastern Europe, do these things?
Well, there were two thoughts. First of all was the speed and the ease with which this virus was spreading around the world, which was terrifying. And the second was the strengths and weaknesses of our own health system. How do we cope with this challenge?
President Muhammadu Buhari has set up a presidential task force for the control of the coronavirus 19 disease, otherwise known as COVID-19, with the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Boss Mustafa, as chairman, while Dr. Sani Aliyu is the national coordinator.
No, we put heads together and we quickly realized that this is not something we could just rely on our traditional voices and means of communication, and we really had to bring in everyone.
Okay, so there's no need to be wearing face masks because obviously there's no COVID. Like, look around.
I don't believe COVID-19 because COVID-19 does not exist in Nigeria.
Everybody thought that, okay, this is another scam, elitist scam to steal money. This is their disease. But with persistence and determination, we were able to begin some communication with the Nigerian people, and they began to adopt and even respect and oblige the non-pharmaceutical measures that we put in place.
The booster dose of the COVID-19 vaccine was administered on President Muhammadu Buhari by his chief personal physician, Dr. Suhaib Sanusi Rafindadi, though devoid of any formal ceremony.
We did set up a private sector group that we called CACOVID, Coalition of Private Sector Against COVID-19. We taxed Nigerian private sector and banks. I think we were able to raise almost close to about 40 billion naira. No country in the world had private sector people coming together to think of what can we do to support our people, not just government, our people, to ensure that people don't die, to ensure that we can even help them. We did two things. All over the country, we built health centers, we brought in drugs, tents were built in 36 states of the country.
And as of today that I'm talking, we have the best molecular laboratory in the country. We deployed a lot of money, we stood up a laboratory, we bought all the facilities. The last plane, the last flight from Turkey before the lockdown brought all the equipment we needed.
And this is one of the molecular labs that was set up to help in the combat of COVID-19. The molecular laboratory, since its inception, the primary aim has been the detection of SARS-CoV-2, which causes COVID-19. But it also has other functions like the qualitative and quantitative detection of other diseases like hepatitis B, C, and HIV.
We started to increase the capacity to diagnose, more laboratories, more reagents, and at that time planning to set up more isolation centers.
This is the infectious disease molecular laboratory and also infectious disease general laboratory.
On reflection, you know, the Nigerian government does get a lot of flack for many things, right? But I think on this particular occasion, you know, I'm really proud of the steps taken by our political leadership very early on in the outbreak.
Deliver content to students at home through television, through internet sometimes. So federal government has done that even though it is not in its line of duty.
We found ourselves as the entry point of COVID, naturally the airport. So the first we did is to alert government that, look, we need to close down these airports. The protocols we developed in Nigeria, you know, were shared with the world, and most of it, you know, was adopted. We took our job very seriously, and that's why when airlines from countries of, I think KLM from Netherlands, Air France from France, Lufthansa from Germany, British Airways from Britain, Emirates from UAE, and so on. So they flouted our rules against COVID. We didn't wait a second. We just suspended the airlines at that time. And luckily for us, they saw the reason and the rationale. They apologized. So British Airways, Lufthansa, Air France, all came back the next day.
The expectation of the world was that they were going to be picking dead bodies on the continent of Africa, on the streets. But we proved them wrong. I believe it's our resolve and our determination as a country and as a continent to fight for our lives. You know, particularly in Nigeria, you know, we love life. Nobody wants to die. We knew it was an all-of-government approach that was necessary. But in addition to that, we also got the corporate world to come into the response. So it was all of people approach. And our national response was crafted in such a way that everybody had a stake in it. We were all on the same page.
Wix vous offre la liberté de raconter votre histoire avec un site professionnel qui reflète votre identité.
That COVID period also helped us to make comprehensive assessment of the healthcare system in the country. And with that assessment, we were able to now refocus funding that was supposed to have served other sectors to key health infrastructure in the country. So you have in every state at least one federal medical center or one tertiary hospital that has been fully upgraded because of the COVID-19 and the resources that we're able to mobilize very, very quickly to attack the pandemic and not allow it to sit in and dilapidate our people.
We notice that we have high rates of maternal mortality and infant mortality. And for us to reduce that to the barest minimum, we have to intervene. It is a critical intervention. Critical intervention to save lives. Life of the baby and the life of the mother. And we embarked on building mother and child center in almost all the states of the Federation. So we have 120 beds and we have 100 bed hospitals fully equipped and handed over to the state government. And those hospitals comes with hybrid inverter, solar inverter. So inverter to power the hospital for them, and we provided them another source of electricity so that if they don't need to use that, you use inverter.
This is a model, a newly designed model of a primary healthcare center, the foundation of the healthcare system in Nigeria. We are going to have one of these sites in every political ward of the country. That will be nearly 10,000 units and supposed to attend to the needs, health needs of up to 70% of the population with basic minimum package of healthcare. The federal government under the leadership of President Buhari appropriated what we call the 1% of the basic health of consolidated revenue of the federal government to drive service delivery in here, and it's going to be supported by National Health Insurance Agency or scheme to fund delivery of minimum package.
The devastation caused by this situation has destroyed many lives and livelihoods, and is clearly a driver for the reason why many people in that region have lost faith in government, resulting to many criminal activities we are seeing in the region today.
Before we came on board, you can't fish in Ogoni land because the rivers have gone very oily. The fishes have died. Most of the cultivatable lands are oily, right? There are no feasible effort, to support the livelihood of the people. You could see clearly that there is despondency. There is so much loss of faith in the people of Ogoni land. Now, we've been able to train a lot of youth under the livelihood program and women, either in a lot of crafts and vocations. For instance, some of them have been trained to be seafarers, some have been trained to be ship technicians. We've just gone beyond the normal training of people just training for POP or whatever. No, we are training them in the aviation industry, in the shipping industry, so that they can be productive to themselves and to the society.
You've heard of the hydrocarbon pollution remediation projects, which the federal government also put in place for the cleanup of Ogoni. That is not a project to be done in one day. It's a long-term project, 25 years, but it's ongoing, and it is this current administration that should be pulled by the horns to make sure that structure was put in place to drive it.
It is perhaps one of the biggest cleanup projects in the world of its scale and magnitude. The people are happy. Areas, land that were uninhabitable or not cultivatable before his coming, today are enjoying their land, cultivating, using their land, as marketplaces and other things. So Ogoni cleanup is a big project. Even the UNEP is happy with the kind of focus and support that the president put in that place.
We also have the amnesty program, which has been running. Thousands of youths from the region have been trained and empowered and resettled. And that has also helped in ensuring that we have peace in the region. Because youths who were involved in acts of militancy, piracy in the past were given an opportunity for rehabilitation and to reset their lives. And that policy too has paid dividends.
You've been living in France for months, maybe even years, and you still cannot have a conversation in French.
When this president took over, he met an industry that is struggling to operate. Decision makers were difficult. Decisions are made on the basis of personal considerations. And the meaning of this is that you now have assets in the hands of people who cannot properly run those assets. And the ultimate result is that we are at a principle of collapse.
The biggest problem we had then was actually the lack of commitment by the IOCs. Of course, we've been trying to push the PIA for over 20 years, and that's the Petroleum Industry Act, which eventually became the Petroleum Industry Bill. And this brought about a lot of uncertainty in the industry, but with that being cleared, and I mean, this is one of the greatest things in the oil sector, because what it does is that it has given way for clarity, transparency, and potential investment, because now we're going to see a lot of gas infrastructure, a lot of gas development, and that will obviously bring about more power, more industry, more petchem, etc., etc. And of course, we know gas is a transition fuel. So this will be extremely useful for the global space in terms of clean energy, clean fuel, and the future.
Let me start by welcoming respected and invited guests from across the world to the historic presidential unveiling of the NNPC Limited. This is a landmark event for the Nigerian oil industry. Our country places high premium in creating the right atmosphere that supports investment and growth to boost our economy and continue to play an important role in sustaining global energy requirements.
Now you have a company that is a limited liability company governed by a new set of laws called the Petroleum Industry Act. And the meaning of this is that this company must declare dividend to its shareholders. It must act like just any other private company. It must also compete with its peers in the industry, in the entire energy sector. So what it does is that to deliver more dividend more efficiently, more positively to its shareholders. And of course, these shareholders are the 200 million Nigerians.
The whole idea is for us to really overhaul and give the oil industry a complete makeover and open up new opportunities in the oil industry. We believe that the easiest way to diversify Nigeria's economy is still within the oil and gas sector. From gas, you can get fertilizer, which will open up your agricultural sector. From gas, you can also get the petrochemicals, and you can also open up a lot of factories. From gas, you get methanol, and you can also enable the pharmaceutical and chemical businesses. From gas, of course, you can have power.
Now, as a private limited company, albeit owned by the government, it will be able to raise money in the international markets and be able to get into sort of joint ventures and sort of that it was not able to do, attract the kind of capital it should. And most importantly, inherit sort of corporate governance, which encourages global investment flows to come into the corporation, well, a limited liability company right now, as a veritable platform for harnessing oil and gas resources.
The word transform is an understatement. I would say it is going to lift off, it's going to explode, it's going to, it's the greatest thing that has happened to this, because what it does is that it brings reality to the fiscal policies in the industry. It also ensures that people can invest in the midstream. Any development in any sector, if the developments are not affecting the macro and microeconomics, it's a waste of time. Because what happens is that you just have export of value and no intrinsic value. But with the PIB as it is, the midstream, which is the gas, the petchems, the refinery, which affects the local economy, it's all there.
But our target is to be the energy company of choice, and that is beyond oil, beyond the realities of today. And we know that while Africa and sub-Saharan African countries will continue to rely on fossil fuel for many of our transportation system, running our infrastructure, and so on. But we also know that with access that we have, this company can grow and become bigger than anything.
Why is in Nigeria there is no power? There is power. But the best question you should ask, why is it that power is not enough in Nigeria? But if you compare us with other countries, it may be even better than them. But our size may also give us away, because for a country with 200 million population and a GDP of close to $500 billion, with only the electricity hovering around 5,000 megawatts, you may say we are not doing well.
We set a roadmap for the country to deliver first, increased electricity output. The medium-term strategy was stable electricity, and the long-term plan was uninterrupted power. And I think that we had made a lot of progress in terms of increasing the supply of electricity, because people used to feed back to us then that their electricity supply was predictable. If it was not yet uninterrupted, they could plan. They knew when the outages were likely to happen, which was different from the past, and that their consumption of diesel and petrol to provide alternative electricity generating facilities for themselves had significantly reduced, because our supply was getting better. And I think that the taste of the pudding, as it says, in the eating. So those who experienced those days will better tell you how they felt. But those are the feedback that we got in relation to the objectives that we set up.
Avec Carrefour, goûtons au meilleur du sport.
Oh, j'en peux plus.
Je vais t'aider, chérie.
Oh, tu portes mon sac?
Non, je te prête mes bâtons. Bâton de marche télescopique LG Sport à seulement 14,99 €. Carrefour, on a tous droit au meilleur.
Staff, Malam Abakiari, set out for Germany to meet with Simmons about bringing Nigeria out of darkness. Malam Kiari contracted COVID and passed away. But his supreme national sacrifice means Nigeria can start dreaming of better power supply again.
he has worked so hard to see the semen intervention concluded. Well, we continue with the process even after him. So I went to Berlin. I went and met the president of Siemens, Chris Tambrook. We met in Berlin. I toured all their site. I saw everything. So I went and chased the delivery. And that's led to the ones we have installed at Apo, Lagos. Because by then, Nigerians not understanding what is going on with Siemens. Everywhere I go, they will ask me Siemens. And they say, this Siemens. Every time we have electricity problems, they say, this Siemens is not true. Now it's showing Nigerians that Siemens is real. The PPI is real, and we are going to deliver, inshallah. It's already in Apo here in Abuja. It's already in Ajah in Lagos, and some of the equipments are already in our ports, in clearance on the high sea.
In the whole of Africa, there's not one single African entity or country that has managed to privatize the power sector. When this action was taken by the last government, everyone said it was going to fail. Even when this government came in, the issue was that, it didn't seem right. But the conditions under which those who took over were unbelievable conditions. But that doggedness of we must succeed has allowed some to survive and allowed some to die, also because where they haven't been able to succeed. But what the government did, initially was there was this sense of how do we get these things right? Now it became a sense of we must get this right. And then intervention came in. And through that intervention, you've seen a lot of progress. It takes years to build infrastructure. It takes years to correct the rot that was there, which we all inherited.
Definitely improved. I wouldn't say that we're at utopia, but there's been, now Nigeria has about 15,000 megawatts of installed capacity. The offtake is quite low, 5,000, 6,000 odd, I think. We're going to see very soon an uptick in power consumption. We produce over 20% of the electricity that's consumed in the country. And so far, I feel that there's certainly been an improvement if you look at the statistics, but you will find the bulk of that improvement will come over the next 5 years. I mean, there's no reason why the nation with commitment shouldn't see, 24-hour electricity over the next 10 years, if you ask me.
But we must see that progress. The man on the street, he doesn't want to think about light. He wants to know that when he gets home, there's light. But then again, the big question we must always ask him, is he willing to pay for that service? Because we cannot in one breath deliver that service without cost-reflective tariff.
One can argue that without vandalism, Nigeria would be further along in her development. It's been a case of the government pulling the country 2 steps forward and vandals dragging us 5 steps back. Vandals disrupt most sectors of the economy, from transport to aviation, but especially in oil and power.
The system collapse that we used to experience is close to like 20 times in a year. That is showing how unstable and how weak the national grid was. But 2021, throughout 2021, we had only 2 partial system collapse on the grid. And that is showing that the grid is getting stronger. Recently, we experienced 3 system collapse in 2022. This was not due to the weakness or whatever of the grid. It is due to the fact that there was a vandalized pipeline that takes gas to one of our plants. And suddenly the plant has to shut down, and that causes the instability around the whole grid. Some vandals went and cut off the tower of a 330 line, and that also sent the shock around the grid, and the grid collapses around evening time that day.
until we inculcate the attitude of change in Nigerians and begin to resuscitate our value system and begin to get Nigerians to believe that they must embark on immediate attitudinal change, putting country first, and begin on a massive reorientation campaign and engagement of the citizenry. We will not achieve the full change, but that change is achievable when you and I believe that this Nigeria is ours to own, and we collectively own it.
I had an occasion to speak to leadership of people from the South. This interference with the infrastructure. And I told them that if you go and blow a pipeline, or you sabotage the oil wellhead of the well producing oil, you pollute the environment. I said the area you people are that are claiming this petroleum product, the fish goes back into the sea. The rest of the area is polluted. You cannot farm, you cannot fish. And the majority of your people, as I was telling them, are farmers and fishermen. So you are punishing your own people more than the rest of Nigerians. I hope they have seen the sense in that.
I don't know whether they still ask these questions in primary school nowadays. It's a very, very good exam question. Who is the government? The answer is we are the government.